On the bus, a boy accidentally bumped into a girl who was standing. He picked up her dropped purse and returned it to her, but she snatched it back quickly. The purse, though intact on the outside, had been sliced open, and both her cell phone and wallet were missing. Rena asked the driver to shut the door and head to the police station, but the other passengers disagreed. She then calmly explained the criminal procedure rules, revealing that she was a law student. Reluctantly, the driver took the bus to the police station. The police reviewed the surveillance footage, but found nothing unusual, so they asked Rena if she suspected anyone. She scanned the passengers and noticed Jinwoo, recalling how he had bumped into her on the bus. She suspected that he had done it on purpose to slice open her purse. Jinwoo, however, chuckled and pointed out the exact moment of their collision, identifying the girl who had sat next to Rena. As the memory rewinds, the incident replays, the purse fell, and he realized it had already been cut open before then. The initial theft wasn't on the bus. Jinwoo wasn't using a superpower, he simply possessed an extraordinary memory that retained even the smallest details. Analyzing everything carefully, he eventually tracked down the thief from the bus stop, a man wearing a green jacket and a gold watch who had used a razor blade to slice Rena's purse. Even the thief's license plate number was clear to him. When he shared these details, some passengers mocked him as a thief and a lunatic, but the police checked the license plate and confirmed it matched the car in question. The crowd applauded Jinwoo's keen observations. Jinwoo then added that the real culprit was in the police station. He pointed to a photo on the bulletin board, identifying Oh Jang-soo, a repeat offender with 15 theft convictions. Rena was stunned. Outside, Jinwoo advised her not to jump to conclusions and reminded her to rely on evidence as a law student. Then he walked away. What happened next turned Jinwoo's life upside down. His father was arrested under false accusations of rape and murder. Only Jinwoo knew his father's innocence, realizing that the man behind this frame-up was Guman, a powerful bully. One day, Guman was partying with friends and taunting a group of escort girls. He poured wine into an ashtray and promised a luxury car to anyone who drank from it while barking like a dog. Tempted, one of the girls eventually complied, drinking from the ashtray on all fours, but Guman never intended to keep his promise. Furious, the woman left after secretly placing a cigarette case on the table, which held a hidden camera. She wasn't an escort, she was an undercover agent. Meanwhile, Guman planned another party at his villa, requesting a singer to entertain his guests. Jinya, a young woman from a poor family supporting her father, agreed to sing for the money. As soon as she arrived, she sensed the depravity around her. She planned to leave as soon as she finished, but Guman was captivated by her beauty. After her performance, he intruded backstage and assaulted her. Jinya, devastated, broke a glass and slashed his face in self-defense, but Guman became enraged and stabbed her fatally. She died, alone and in the wilderness. The media caught wind of the tragedy, sparking public outrage and calls for justice. Yet Guman faced no consequences, as he had already bribed the police. Instead, an innocent man was framed for the crime, Jinwoo's father. Early one morning, Jinwoo's father discovered a body and immediately contacted the police. However, due to Guman's influence, Jinwoo's innocent father was made into a scapegoat. The police intimidated him, threatening to harm Jinwoo unless he confessed, leaving him no option but to comply. At the trial, the lack of evidence combined with his forced confession made the outcome appear inevitable. To make things worse, his father's lawyer suffered from intense courtroom anxiety, further dashing Jinwoo's hopes. Determined to prove his father's innocence, Jinwoo sought a new attorney. At that moment, a man named Donghao handed him a business card. Known for his unorthodox tactics, Donghao often staged minor injuries while investigating cases, allowing reporters to capture the drama and sway public opinion. His methods made him highly respected in the legal field. Jinwoo approached Donghao and offered him a substantial amount of money, which he'd earned by counting cards at a casino due to his remarkable memory. Donghao, intrigued by Jinwoo's sincerity, agreed to take the case. They first met with Jinwoo's father to hear his side of the story. Upon learning that the sheriff had coerced his confession, Donghao realized the sheriff was key to the case. Returning to his office, Donghao reviewed case photos, and Jinwoo recalled that the sheriff's pistol, seen during the arrest, had burned marks on the handle and GHS engraved in the center. At the next trial, the prosecutor called the sheriff to testify that Jinwoo's father was guilty. Donghao sprang a trap. He pointed out that the sheriff had illegally detained his client for 3 days and forced him to confess at gunpoint. The sheriff denied this until Dong Hao described the gun's unique details, proving that Jinwoo's father had seen it under duress. Trapped, the sheriff admitted to the coercion, and Jinwoo's father was immediately released. Although the case was closed for now, Dong Hao knew they still needed to find the real culprit. Determined to uncover the truth, Dong Hao and his assistant revisited the crime scene. Using binoculars, he spotted Guman's villa nearby. According to a tip, Jinya had been seen entering that villa before her death, yet Guman had never been questioned by police. Suspicious, Dong Hao devised a plan to gather concrete evidence. He bribed an escort to plant a hidden camera at Guman's club. Their efforts paid off when Guman confessed to killing Jinya. However, a friend of his noticed the hidden camera in a cigarette case, cutting off the transmission. Fortunately, the footage had already been saved, giving them the evidence they needed. Dong Hao rushed to inform Jinwoo, assuring him his father would soon be fully exonerated. The final hearing arrived, and Jinwoo expected his father to be acquitted. Yet, in a shocking turn, Dong Hao claimed there was no video evidence. Enraged, Jinwoo confronted him, but Dong Hao remained unmoved. It was revealed that Dong Hao's adoptive father had pressured him into losing the case, promising him a piece of land if he did so. And it was none other than Ilho, Guman's father, who had orchestrated this betrayal. Dong Hao was given two choices. First, he could accept untold wealth, or second, destroy his own career. This ultimatum forced him to remain silent during the trial. Adding to the case, Jinwoo's father's colleague, Antayu, testified that Jinwoo's father had hidden the murder weapon in the restroom, sealing his guilt in the eyes of the court. Ultimately, Jinwoo's father was sentenced to death. Outside the courthouse, Jinwoo watched in disbelief as Dong Hao shook hands with the plaintiff's attorney. That night, Jinwoo sought out Dong Hao at his office, only to see Guman driving away and Dong Hao walking out. Enraged, Jinwoo punched him, feeling betrayed by the cruelty of the world. Heartbroken, Jinwoo packed his bags and left the city. For years later, Jinwoo returned as a lawyer, ready to reopen his father's case and seek the justice denied years ago. No longer a weak, naive student, he was now strong and determined. His first case involved an employee who had died from overwork. Jinwoo represented the grieving family, and with sharp arguments and evidence, he won. His father's case had shaped him, and his disillusionment with the legal field only fueled his resolve. To monitor the Ilhit Group's activities closely, he set up an office nearby, complete with a hidden room filled with information about the company. Jinwoo soon visited his father in prison. However, his father, aged and suffering from Alzheimer's, barely recognized him. When Jinwoo handed him a familiar necklace, his father realized his son had become a lawyer, which filled him with pride. Yet, his father seemed troubled, asking if Jinwoo would make the same mistake as before. Jinwoo reassured him, telling him to have faith in his innocence. Meanwhile, Dong Hao had become the top lawyer for the Ilhit Group, representing only the wealthy and powerful. Rina, the one person who had believed in Jinwoo's father's innocence from the beginning, had become a prosecutor to help reopen the case. At an Ilhit Group meeting, Ilho, the company's chairman, congratulated the team for its performance, particularly honoring Dong Hao's foster father, Wu Chang's, and the group's vice president. Guman, feeling slighted, returned to his office, fuming over the recognition given to others. Determined to eliminate the vice president, he devised a sinister plan. At the company's annual party, Guman arranged for Hannah, a female employee, to sit next to the vice president. Under pressure to keep her job, she reluctantly made a toast with him, and later, in distress, she arrived at the police station to accuse him of attempted assault. The police quickly detained the vice president, creating a public scandal. Jinwoo sensed something suspicious and began his own investigation, assigning his colleagues to gather information. On the other side, Guman dined with Ilho, who told him to remove any tainted individuals from the company, which Guman eagerly agreed to do. Rina, determined to handle the vice president's assault case, asked the team leader for the assignment. Though doubtful of her ability, the team leader eventually agreed after Rina's persistence, even following him into the men's restroom to plead her case. Meanwhile, Guman sought out Dong Hao, demanding he lose the case and ensure the vice president was sent to jail. Dong Hao, once again, faced a choice between justice and his alliance with Ilhit Group's corrupt power. The first trial against the vice president began, and the evidence seemed to confirm an attempted assault. However, Dong Hao didn't mount much of a defense and made a spectacle of himself instead. After the trial, Jinwoo approached the vice president, revealing that the Ilho group had abandoned him and already had a list of potential replacements. Desperate, the vice president turned to Jinwoo for help. In court, Jinwoo introduced Hannah's ex-boyfriend, a former lecturer who had been sued by her and had to pay a large settlement. Citing Hannah's past criminal record, Jinwoo urged the judge not to destroy an honest man. Later, Ilho approached Dong Hao about the case, and upon learning the vice president might be acquitted, instructed Wu Changs to proceed with their next plan. Soon after, a new video surfaced depicting the alleged assault in detail. Even the vice president doubted himself after seeing it. But upon closer inspection, Jinwoo noticed that the man in the video wasn't wearing a ring, while the vice president always wore one, leaving a distinct mark on his finger. Realizing the video was fake, Jinwoo tracked down the black box provider and discovered he was linked to the organization that once forced him out of Dong Hao's office. Following him to appear, Jinwoo uncovered Wu Changs as the mastermind, who had staged the assault by having someone impersonate the vice president. As Jinwoo tried to intervene, Dong Hao's men ambushed and beat him severely. Dong Hao later warned Jinwoo not to pursue Yan's arrest. At the hospital, Jinwoo met Hannah's mother, who had just undergone surgery. Learning of Hannah's father's debts and guilt over abandoning his family, Jinwoo shared his sympathies with Hannah, urging her not to ruin another family by taking away their father. At the final hearing, the vice president handed Jinwoo an envelope for his family, but Jinwoo encouraged him to deliver it himself, confident in their case. In court, Jinwoo exposed the inconsistency with the ring in the video, proving it was staged. He called on Hannah, highlighting her mother's recent cancer surgery and her financial struggles as an intern. After seeing the vice president's family and recalling her own father, Hannah finally confessed that the vice president had done nothing wrong. After the trial, Jinwoo and friends celebrated, but encountered Guman, whom Jinwoo provoked by declaring he'd take him to court, angering Guman enough to lash out violently at his assistant. Meanwhile, Jinwoo successfully defended the vice president and obtained the Ilhit Group's illegal accounting book. Betrayed after 30 years of service, the vice president decided to leave the Ilhit Group with his family and the evidence in hand. Jinwoo is determined to reopen his father's case. He tracks down Auntie Shu, the woman who previously gave false testimony, hoping she finally tell the truth about the past. When Jinwoo arrives, Auntie Shu becomes visibly nervous and denies ever lying. She insists that he leave, warning him that she call the police if he keeps bothering her. As her daughter comes outside, Jinwoo hands over his business card, saying she can reach him if her mother decides to speak. Meanwhile, Guman's assistant observes this encounter from afar. Elsewhere, Rina decides to investigate the case herself after watching a video involving Jinwoo. Later, Guman learns from his assistant about Jinwoo's meeting with the witness and decides to approach Wu Changs for help. Wu Changs initially refuses, sensing this request isn't straightforward, but Guman manipulates him by exploiting his vulnerability around Dong Hao and their current positions. Wu Changs eventually agrees and goes to a watch store to pass on a photo and instructions. In another scene, Auntie Shu and her daughter are sorting clothes when Guman's assistant arrives, pressuring the daughter not to testify for Jinwoo. Meanwhile, Jinwoo visits his ailing father, who, despite his worsening health, remembers Jinwoo and asks him to tell his son that he misses him. That same day, Auntie Shu is on the phone when a shadowy figure appears behind her, pulling a thin wire from his watch. The outcome is fatal. While Jinwoo is discussing his father's case with Rina, he receives a text from Auntie Shu asking him to meet her urgently. Jinwoo rushes to the location, only to find her dead with visible strangulation marks on her neck. Just then, several police officers, led by the sheriff who threatened his father, arrive intending to arrest him. Realizing he's being set up as a murderer, Jinwoo seizes a chance to escape through a window before the police can catch him. Now a wanted man, Jinwoo hides in a hotel, piecing together clues in his mind to identify the killer. With Rina's help, he narrows down a list of ex-convicts with similar techniques, finding a red fiber in the victim's nails. He recalls a man he saw near the victim's home who wore a red sweater and had a scorpion tattoo on his hand. Comparing this with Rina's list, Jinwoo confirms this man's identity and discovers his address. The following morning, Jinwoo goes alone to the suspect's area, while Rina coordinates an arrest team. She reminds them that the suspect is skilled at disguises, particularly noting the scorpion tattoo on his wrist. Rina heads to a convenience store and shows the suspect's photo to the owner, who denies knowing him. As she's about to leave, she spots a scorpion tattoo on the hand of the cashier. She decides to follow him alone, but loses him around a corner, where he ambushes her and knocks her out. Rina wakes up tied to a chair as the man prepares to strangle her with a thin wire from his watch. At the last moment, Dong-hao crashes through the glass door and demands he let her go. Furious, the man attempts to attack Dong-hao, but Dong-hao easily subdues him. Jinwoo arrives shortly after, relieved to find Rina unharmed. The killer is arrested, clearing Jinwoo of the murder accusation. Gyumin grew frustrated when he realized he couldn't send Jinwoo to jail. While driving, he passed a car and, fueled by anger, sped up to force it to stop. Getting out of his car, he put on gloves, grabbed a club from his trunk, and stormed toward the woman's car, smashing the windows until all the glass shattered. Feeling satisfied, Gyumin called Dong-hao to handle the aftermath. When Dong-hao arrived, he gave the woman a stack of money, asking her not to post anything online. She agreed, satisfied with the payoff. Meanwhile, Auntie Shu's daughter approached Jinwoo with a video her mother had left. She explained that her mother had instructed her to make the video public if anything happened to her, but instead, she decided to give it to Jinwoo, apologizing on her mother's behalf. At night, Jinwoo's father, Jae-woo, visited the prison doctor, unaware that Gyumin had already bribed him. The doctor falsely claimed that Jae-woo was faking illness and withheld medication, causing Jae-woo's health to worsen. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was busy preparing for his father's upcoming trial. Before the first trial, the director met with Rina, instructing her to work with prosecutor Choi on Jinwoo's father's case. The director, the same prosecutor who had originally convicted Jae-woo, had used the case to climb the ranks. Under Korean law, Rina had no choice but to comply. When the trial began, Rina wore her prosecutor's uniform but chose to sit in the audience instead of defending the case, causing Choi, who was prosecuting, to react visibly. During the trial, Jinwoo presented a video from Auntie Shu, recorded before her death, in which she admitted she'd given false testimony about Jae-woo's presence at the villa. However, the prosecutor countered with analysis showing Auntie Shu was under significant stress when she recorded the video, implying coercion. Thankfully, Auntie Shu's daughter was able to testify, confirming she had recorded the video herself, strengthening Jinwoo's case. Jinwoo now had to gather more evidence to secure his father's release. That night, the sheriff was trapped in a car near a car compactor. Wu Chang's arrived to confirm the sheriff's identity and directed his men to throw him into the compactor. The sheriff struggled, but just as he was about to be thrown in, Jinwoo intervened, rescuing the sheriff and driving the crane toward the gang members, causing them to retreat. Mr. Song then arrived, and together they freed the sheriff. Grateful, the sheriff promised to testify in court to support Jinwoo's case. On another front, Rina faced backlash from the director for sitting in the audience at the trial. The director threatened to transfer her to a remote location to keep her from exposing his ties with the Nika group. Fed up, Rina resigned, voicing her frustration that the organization she once saw as a defender of justice was now protecting criminals. Before leaving, she warned the director that she would continue to pursue justice against him, even outside the prosecutor's office. Rina joined Jinwoo's firm, determined to keep fighting for justice as a lawyer. Later that evening, while celebrating gaining a key witness, Jinwoo received troubling news that his father's stomach pain had worsened, but despite his cries for help, no one intervened. As the prison guards walked past, they ignored the cries of an older man suffering from Alzheimer's, who was worsening due to the prison doctor's refusal to provide him with medication. By the time Jinwoo heard the news, his father was already in the ICU. Seeing his father's frail condition broke Jinwoo's heart, and he vowed to clear his father's name. The second trial began shortly after, but an unexpected turn occurred. The young, fair-minded judge was replaced by a middle-aged man who immediately questioned the credibility of Auntie Shu's video testimony from the first trial, demanding Jinwoo to produce stronger evidence or additional witnesses. When Jinwoo called for the police chief to testify, things shifted again. The chief denied supporting Jinwoo's claims. This shock led the audience to murmur in disbelief, as it was clear that Gyumin had orchestrated everything to ensure Jinwoo's plan failed. While Jinwoo tried to argue, he received devastating news his father had just passed away. Holding back his grief, he gave a final, impassioned speech in court, condemning how the rich escape justice while the powerless are denied even basic treatment. Despite his pleas, the judge upheld the original verdict. Jinwoo, broken yet resolute, returned to see his father one last time, collapsing into tears by his bedside. Meanwhile, Gyumin was promoted to president of the ill-hit group, and Jinwoo simply held a quiet funeral for his father. Now, with nothing left to lose, he was ready to begin his revenge. His first target was the prison doctor, whom he secretly followed, capturing photos of him accepting bribes. Jinwoo handed these photos to a young, honest judge, leading to the doctor's imprisonment. Next, Jinwoo targeted the sheriff who had betrayed him. He set up a hidden camera, catching the sheriff taking a bribe, and sent the footage to the police. The sheriff's greedy statements and claims of having Guman's backing enraged the police leadership, who began investigating him. When the sheriff turned to Guman for help, Jinwoo had already sent the incriminating footage to Guman as well. Guman, furious, forced the sheriff to the ground, warning him not to cross him or face deadly consequences. But the sheriff wasn't deterred. The next day, he confronted Guman, threatening to expose his secrets. This drove Guman to kidnap the sheriff, taking him to an abandoned warehouse and beating him up. What Guman didn't realize was that this warehouse was where the sheriff had once threatened Jinwoo's father, and it had a hidden camera recording everything. Later that night, the sheriff, now severely beaten, approached Jinwoo, offering to work together against Guman. Meanwhile, Guman attempted to reform his public image, hosting a meal for an elderly man while being recorded by the media. But his phone buzzed with a video message. It was footage of him attacking the sheriff. Enraged, he received a call from Jinwoo, who warned that this was just the beginning. Furious, Guman flipped the table in front of his guests. On another front, the director who had long colluded with Guman faced an investigation, and things were finally starting to change. One evening, Guman and his friends held a party at a hotel where they spiked drinks with powder. Unbeknownst to them, lawyer Mr. Song was filming every moment. Soon, police cars arrived, and Guman made a run for it, abandoning his best friend in the process. In the underground parking, Jinwoo had his eyes on Guman's car. However, it turned out to be his assistant, Suum, impersonating him, as Guman had prepared for an escape. In retaliation, Guman lashed out at Jinwoo for disrupting his plans. When Suum tried to stop him, Guman directed his rage at him. Unable to tolerate Guman's abuse any longer, Suum decided to break free and later delivered the real murder weapon to Jinwoo, along with evidence of Guman's crimes. As Donghao publicly released a video of Guman confessing to the murder, public pressure mounted. Guman was sentenced to death, and in a desperate move, he turned to his father for help. However, his father chose to protect the company, severing their relationship. Defeated, Guman returned to his cell and ultimately took his own life, ending his legacy in tragedy. So guys, this is the conclude of this story. Now watch another cool videos. And for more videos, subscribe to Cine Recaps.